Hey, Michael Lake with altobone.com. I am outside on a beautiful day today because I want to make a point, and I've got my garden hose with me. And the point I want to make is about musical flow, and I talk about this a lot. Let's call this your natural state of creativity, right? You're in the car, you're thinking about music, you're in your shower, you're humming, you're listening to a tune, you're imagining what your solo would be like. This is flow. But this is what can happen when you're just starting out, right? I put the instrument to my face, this nozzle, and I got no flow. It's restricting my musical flow. I got leakage, I got a little bit of an idea out here, I don't know how good it is. What's happening here? Well, what's happening is you haven't developed your instrumental skills, perhaps, or certainly you haven't developed the connection between your mind, your musical mind that had that great flow in the beginning, to amplify it through the instrument. So as you get better and better, you get tighter and tighter and you have less leakage, and then you have a little more of a flow here until eventually all this is doing is amplifying your musical ideas, and you're pointing them where you want to go, and you've got flow again, right? Now, maybe that flow is different for different people. It could be this style. Maybe it's full out. Maybe it's that style. Oh, or that. Maybe it's that. But regardless what it is, what we want to do in this video is talk about building the connection between your mind and your instrument so that it doesn't cause leakage and a source of immense resistance, but it allows and amplifies for the flow of your musical ideas. That's what we're going to talk about. In the beginning, when you're first learning to improvise or you're working on your improvisation and your instrument kind of feels and sounds like this, it's because you haven't yet fully built the connection between your musical brain and your instrument. You know, they're in two different places. They're not aligned. So the question is, how do you align them so that your mind directs your instrument to play what you imagine? So I want to give you two practical steps in this video. And by the way, if you want to learn more, I suggest my book, Trombone Improvisation Savvy, and also Jazz Ear Savvy, which you can get in bass clef, E flat, and B flat for trumpet and sax. I think what you'll find are fun exercises that are unlike any other you've tried that build that connection that we're talking about between the brain and the instrument that we're going to talk about through this video. So here's step one. In your mind, I want you to hear a tune. I want you to hear, I don't know, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, and think about it in your mind. So you're like, Mary had a little lamb, da, da, da. Okay, and then I want you to hear that first note. Let's just start out with one note. So G. You don't have to play the whole tune, but just kind of that first phrase. And then, if you can, move to another note. Okay, and then, you know, feel free to do other tunes. And here's a list of some great tunes to try this with in different keys. What I would suggest right now, pause the video and try that with any tune you want, but you can do Mary Had a Little Lamb, Happy Birthday, it doesn't really matter. Pause the video and see what that feels like. So was that easy or difficult, right? Did you have to kind of search for the notes, or did they kind of feel automatic coming out of your ear? So if that was challenging, you have some initial things to practice. Play Mary Had a Little Lamb, play Happy Birthday, Three Blind Mice, and so on. If Mary Had a Little Lamb was easy, do the same with like a standard tune, Autumn Leaves, Over the Rainbow, Saints Go Marching In, and so on. Try it with, you know, like something like Beethoven's Fifth, that main motif, like... And play around with that. You're just trying to, again, solidify that connection between what you hear in your mind and what's coming out of the instrument. So practice that. Try and get that music out and amplified through your instrument with as little thought as possible, right? You're just trying to make it a reaction, not a left brain thinking process, right? So What's happening here? Well, your brain learns by building connections. And with repetition, those connections get stronger, and they even build protection around those connections to make them permanent. So as your fingers and your arms go into the right places more often and do so with more difficult songs, you're building connections in your brain that allow the music to flow through your horn, and that's what we call good improvisation. Now you have to be careful and keep a lookout, because if you practice the wrong things, you're going to build those connections as well. And it's the same thing with self-talk, right? You program your brain to kind of seek out and expect success when your self-talk is positive. Like, I can become a good improviser. I'm developing into a good musician. I can use the things in this video to help me improvise better. But by saying things like, I can't improvise, or I'll never get this stuff, or I suck, or it's too hard, that will program your brain to actively prevent you from playing as you would like. Because your brain takes your orders literally, for good or for bad. So stick with the good. No matter how hard you work on your playing, if in the back of your mind you're telling yourself, I can't play, your mind will cooperate to make that true. It's self-sabotage, right? Now, to learn more about how the brain works in the improvisational process, my friend Dr. Rodney Brim, who spent a lifetime learning how the brain works, and is also a musician, by the way, just recorded a podcast with Brent Varstra of Learn Jazz Standards, right? You've probably heard of that. Dr. Brim and Brent talk about left-right brain rolls, connections, self-talk, and a lot of really eye-opening stuff. It's a terrific podcast, and I really recommend that you go and listen to that. And by the way, when you're on Brent's site, check out some of his materials for learning to play jazz. It's really, he's built quite a large and tremendously valuable resource. So step one was to play what you hear in your mind without any musical accompaniment. The second step now is to play by ear along with the music. So building that connection and process between what you hear and your musical ideas amplified through your instrument. And in the description of this video down below, I've given you a link to a backing track. It's called Descending Thirds from Root. I know that sounds like a kind of a funky title, but it's from my book, Jazz Ear Savvy. And if you see the book, you'll see an exercise and it'll make sense. But basically, it's just a bed of music that modulates to various keys. Like each key lasts about 15 seconds before it modulates to another key. And kind of random keys. They're not just circle of fifths or up a half step. So the exercise is listen to the track, you know, that first 15 seconds of a particular key, and see how well your ear can guide you to find the notes that sound good within the harmony. Now, there's no need to play a bunch of notes. This is not about technique or sounding flashy. It's really about aligning your ear with what you hear and then projecting that out your instrument. So, you know, start with one note and sing or hum a note that fits with the harmony. Then play it on your instrument. And the question is, how easy is that process for you? Now, before you play your horn, what's important is to hear the tone in your head, right? So one mistake improvisers make is they start or lead with their instrument instead of first with their musical mind or listening to what's happening outside them. So the rule is listen first, then play, rather than play first and then listen, or not listen at all. It's kind of like fire, ready, aim. No, you don't want to do that. You want to do ready, aim, fire. Now, lead with your musical mind, but as you develop, you know, that time gap between what you hear in your mind and getting out of the instrument, it gets closer and closer to instantaneous. You know, that's why the great players just pick up their instrument and it's just like their voice is just coming out, because they've got that solid connection between the instrument and their musical mind. So, let me give you an example with that. I'm going to play a little bit on that track to kind of give you a sense of kind of easing your way into finding the notes that work within the harmony. So here's what that might sound like. So you can see that, I wasn't trying to play a lot of notes. I'm not trying to be fancy. What I was really trying to do is get myself firmly ingrained in the harmony and just hearing something and then getting it out of the horn and just practicing that process of hearing, getting out of the horn, and just living within the various harmonies of the exercise. I think that would be a great help for you, and I'd like to hear what you think of that. So visualize the hose without the nozzle. That's you imagining the notes you can play. Then with your instrument, aim the hose and squeeze with deliberate control. And that's you reflecting your imagined music and projecting it through your instrument. If you make the mistake of reversing the process by putting the instrument first without listening, it's like an out-of-control hose, and that can get ugly. Now that's flow.